Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the open session for the Carroll County, Maryland Board of Commissioners for Thursday, March 20th, 2025. As always, we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent reflection. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible,
liberty and justice
liberty
for
and
all.
justice for all.
Well, we're very glad to have everybody with us this morning, and we're glad to have Commissioners Kyler and Rothstein joining us by virtually today. So we'll begin, as we always do, with Priority Carroll. Commissioner Kyler, what do you have for us?
Okay, you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
In the last week, met a couple individuals from county residents and some companies. Wrestling season, high school wise, is over. Lacrosse season, softball, baseball, all that's going on. Yesterday, I went to Annapolis to the Mako Legislative Committee meeting, and they held a lunch. I got to talk to a couple of our delegates, and some I talked to, some I met, and had some great conversation. They still have a lot going on, and a lot of us, and Pam will share with us, a lot of things they're not sure of yet. And they're busy. I think they might be, they might have sessions on Saturdays right now. Nobody knows where the budget's gonna head. I guess the common thinking is that instead of extending the session, there'll be something happen in June, July, August with budget adjustments. I'm looking forward to starting our agency budget hearings. We'll get into that today and Tuesday, Thursday moving forward. And I think that covers it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kyler. Commissioner Rothstein, anything from you this morning?
Just a couple things. One, last night I had the opportunity to talk to Cub Scout Pack 110 down in Carrolltown Elementary. Kids from kindergarten through, I think, fourth or fifth grade. And then I spoke with the Weeblos afterwards. Always a lot of energy with these kids, and very inquisitive with their questions and interest on what's going on around them. So that was a lot of fun. Always enjoy being invited to opportunities like that. I also participated in the Mako legislative session, albeit via Zoom and not in person. Very good discussion, especially, I believe, around education and the blueprint. Mako does such a great job. I'm so proud, one, to be on their board, but also to participate with their team, their leadership and their team, and all the other jurisdictions coming together. And shout out to one of their staffers, Sarah Semple. She put together a letter to the legislation regarding blueprint, and basically was sharing what specific counties are expecting to spend from the formula that was in 2018, not taking in regard inflation, to now 2025, and the difference. And it's very difficult to make up that difference. One, from the 2018 to 2025, and then also from what the schools have been given in dollar amount to now what the schools are expecting in dollar amount. And we're not alone. We're definitely, Carroll County, we definitely have our challenges, and we know the magic numbers But she also highlighted Howard County, Somerset County. I know County Executive Castley was interviewed, I believe today, over Harford County. Same issues regarding a very, not very, a difference in dollar amount. Um, I don't believe we're going to get to the full dollar amount that has been requested with the Board of Education. I'm looking forward to continuing to work with the Board of Education and CCPS in sharing what, right could look like. And I believe there's going to be a compromise in the middle. I think key to also our success is continuing to voice our strong opinions on why these dollars matter and why funding our school system matters to continue the best education in the state, and that's really what we have. And I know Pam Meister is going to be talking a little bit more about that as well. So I look forward to that conversation. And that's all I got for now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Garin?
Thank you. Just one quick note. I had the honor of attending the Mount Airy Auxiliary's 85th anniversary Saturday night. These auxiliary groups, which exist with every single fire station in the county, do amazing work, not only supporting the men and women that are working out of the fire station, but assisting with all-important fundraisers. And the Mount Airy Auxiliary, again, 85 years. It was a great evening. They presented a check to Chief Russo, I think for about $30,000. I did some math and adjusted for inflation. This is not a scientific calculation, but adjusted for inflation, that particular auxiliary has probably donated well over $1.5 million to that fire station. And we all know how much equipment costs. Mount Airy is actually in the process of trying to acquire 2 new vehicles, so that money's going to come in handy. But it was a wonderful evening. And again, to anybody who's interested in supporting the county, and more in particular your neighborhood, I would encourage you to go to those websites for your local fire station and apply to join the auxiliary. There was an amazing group of people there, a lot of sons and daughters, mothers and daughters, people had contributed well over 40 years of service to Mount Airy. So again, if you want to get involved in your community, as we like to say, check out your auxiliary at your fire station, because they just simply do amazing work, and they're doing something every weekend, so you can always pitch in. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner Gordon?
Thank you. Just a couple quick things. This week, March 18th, was National Ag Day. Heartfelt thank you to all our farmers and those involved in feeding, clothing, and providing us every day. And currently, Carroll County has 80,637 acres in AgPres, which makes us #1 in the state of Maryland. Truly can't say enough about all our farmers and everything they do for the community at large, and truly appreciative of them. Secondly, just wanted to bring up briefly, and I know probably a number of people have seen this on social media and also the press release, the Carroll County Commissioners did deny PSEG's land agent right of entry to county property. So just as the public has been denying right to their properties, the county has also opted to do so, and are following in that footstep. So just wanted to mention that as well. And last but certainly not least, also wanted to mention a really great event coming up that ties into the 250 Maryland event on March 29th, and this can be looked up online. There is an event that will be held at Exploration Commons, and we have 2 authors coming in that co-wrote a book called National Treasure Hunt. They have a podcast. It's Aubrey Paris and Emily Black. They'll be presenting interactive, family-friendly lecture concerning the National Treasure film franchise, which had its 20th anniversary in 2024. And also on display will be a number of authentic props relating to the first 2 films. And just should be a good time for all. If you have an interest in history, come out and check that out on the 29th. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gordon. I will also be brief this morning. So good morning, everybody. First of all, congratulations to the FSK girls basketball team on their Class 2A state championship victory. What an absolutely incredible accomplishment, and how absolutely proud we are in District 1 of you and across the county to be the home of champions. And I know next week we'll be talking a little bit more about that. Over the weekend, I had the pleasure of joining Chief Robinson at the annual Pleasant Valley Fire Company dinner. I'm always grateful to be present at Pleasant Valley, whatever the reason, and what was awesome was that the chief and I were able to present a certificate to honor Pleasant Valley Chief Michael Gist, who after 57 years is retiring, and God bless him for it. As always, Chief Robinson represents DFEMS in the county so very well. I also had the opportunity this week to attend the local Maryland Municipal League quarterly chapter dinner, joining Commissioner Gordon, County Administrator Roberta Wyndham, and Deputy County Administrator Deb Effingham, and spending time with our mayors, our councils, who keep Carroll's towns and cities running so well. The relationships that we have with our towns are incredibly important for the citizens that we as commissioners have to serve in common, including all of the many areas where we cooperate and work with each other. In particular, we presented a proclamation to New Windsor Mayor Neil Roop, who after decades of service himself is set to retire. He's a good man, he's been an incredible mayor, and he is a good role model, and I know we wish him all the best and God bless. Just a very brief thank you to Vivian Daly, who in the Commissioner's office puts together the proclamations that we present. And she often goes unsung for the work that she puts into the ability that we have to be able to present on behalf of individuals. So thank you to her for all of her work. And lastly, I will echo Commissioner Kyler and Rothstein's comments about how hard our senators and delegates are working constructively down in Annapolis to curtail issues with Blueprint, to push back against the MPRP power lines. It really is a team effort between all of us, the Board of Ed, our delegation, and we are continuing to work alongside everybody to bring out the best possible outcomes that we can. That is all for me this morning. So Commissioner Guerin, I believe you have something about Mr. Rick Barber's retirement.
I do. Thank you very much. We've got a special presentation this morning. If Rick would like to come on up, and Eric, would you like to join him as well? I don't want, okay. And anybody else who wants to? So we're talking about Rick Barber this morning. Rick began employment, and good morning to everybody.
please
Please
sit
have
down,
a seat.
yeah.
Please have a seat. And he's joined by a lot of family. It looks like all his sons are here, and we've got some daughter-in-laws and some friends as well. Rick Barber began employment at Carroll County on August 13th, 1977, 1 year after graduating from Francis Scott Key High School. And I think we might, oh, we got some pictures too.
That is some serious hair.
Dirty trick, very dirty trick.
Wow. So let's leave that up for a
Rick,
couple more
payback is
seconds.
hell.
You thought this was going to be fun, didn't you, Rick?
Commissioner Guerin, I think his hair outdoes my hair.
Oh, I wish I had that hair. As you retire, you are the second longest serving employee in the history of Carroll County government. That's 47 years and 47 months. The longest serving staff member is approaching 49 years. I think we might have some questions for you, and I've got a certificate to read, but before we do that, I'd like to give Eric an opportunity to, maybe you want to talk about Rick and how valuable he's been for these 47 years.
Rick has brought a lot of experience to the county. He's done anything. He still tells me where places are. I've only been here for 4 years. So, I mean, he's a mix of everything. He can run any piece of machinery, any piece of equipment we have, down to the line painter, he does it all. As a matter of fact, when I pulled in today, I kind of smiled because I seen the rollback with the skid loader on it. He's going to be augering some holes here after this, but we're going to miss him. He does. I can't say one thing. He does it all. So we're going to miss that experience, and I thank you for everything you've done for the county, and even helping me out. So.
Well, I think it's fair to say that we won't be able to replace him.
Right,
He will be sorely missed. I don't want to give you a chance to speak, Rick, but I'll let you say a few words, but I do have to. I had a few of your fellow employees teasing a few stories. One about the bridge rebuild over the Monocacy in Harney and what things were like years ago doing that. And then I keep hearing about a paint truck being on fire. So I think this will be your opportunity to explain to everybody exactly what happened. But I'd like to hear I'd like to hear you comment on those two items. But I'll give the floor to you, sir, and let you let folks know how you feel.
Well, the bridge was Starner's Dam, and that was a 4-month project. We worked 6 days a week, from daylight to dark. Good thing OSHA wasn't up there. But I learned a lot in that bridge. We had Gene Wardenfelt was the engineer, and that man has taught me so much. Up there, we completely disassembled the bridge, brought it down, sandblasted it, painted it. The piers through the river, we cut the tops off, jackhammered them off, and re-poured and rebuilt. And that man was awesome. I learned so much about tying steel, building forms, and just unbelievable. But that took us, that was some hard work up there. I was the littlest guy on the crew, and the beams was 2 foot tall and 40 foot long, so you had to shimmy out on them and cut the webbing out. And they tied a rope around me and around the beam in case I fell, I wouldn't hit the river. So, yeah, it was an experience. That was like the second year I was here. But the paint truck and Richie Land back there, he was on my crew.
I hope OSHA's not watching.
I was thinking the same thing.
Statute of limitations, I
Yes,
think.
statute.
The paint truck, we set it on fire 3 times. It's when it was oil-based, not latex now. And we heated the paint to 160 degrees, and it was dry in 20 seconds. So our thinner was Toluene, or toluene, however you want to say it. And under compression, a quart was equal to a stick of dynamite, and we carried 30 gallon. And the furnace on it was a preheating furnace for a jet plane. And it would overload and sometimes go off with a real loud boom. And 3 times it overloaded and set the deck on fire. We should have died the first fire. The tank truck company and the paint people themselves are like, you guys should have been killed the first time. So we lived through 3 of them, and then Benton said, okay, we're done, we're getting a new truck. Well, we took blood tests 3 times a year because the thinners we used would destroy your liver. So it was questionable. How about it, Richie? So that's the 2 stories on that.
Well, I know it's impossible to like encapsulate 47, which is just mind-boggling, 47 years in just 10, 15 minutes. But I know you probably work with a lot of good people along the way. Some of them are probably watching. So I don't know if you have any message for everybody else. Maybe the guy that saved your life with the paint truck on fire, and then maybe the guy who almost killed you on the bridge. If you have something to say to either one of those people.
I do not want to retire. When I first came here, the old guys was retiring, and if he was willing to learn, they was willing to teach you. Al Keents was the public works director, and he hired me, and he says, what can you do? And I told him, he goes, you willing to learn? Yes, sir. He goes, then you'll fit right in. But the roads guys, that was a rough crew when I come here. They showed you once, and you better learn. I came here at 19, and they didn't want to hear you're 19. They wanted to hear you're in a man's world now. You're going to do a man's job, and you better do it the first time. And I made foreman in 1980. I was traffic control foreman. I had the paint crew, the sign crew, and then for a while I had the bridge crew, and then we all did guardrail work. So then it split up, and I just had the paint crew, and I drove the paint truck for 24 years painting lines on the road, and came in for a lot of overtime for trees down, accidents, you name it. And it got to be just too much, so I transferred to the Farm Museum, did a lot of restoration work out there, and then come back to facilities where I've done a lot of concrete, brickwork, some restoration work on like the flume and the undercarriage at the flume at the homestead. I rebuilt them piers back up under it. So I've done a lot of work here, and I'm very proud of it, but I don't want to leave. But the old guy said, you'll know when it's time, and it's time. You can't explain it. This is just, but the county has been very good to me. I've raised a family. The only bad part of it is I missed a lot of family functions for working. I know when my sons was little, I missed 2 Christmases for pushing snow, missed a lot of Thanksgivings, a lot of family things. carried a pager for a while so they could get a hold of me to do things. But it's the county has, I've been a pain in their butt sometimes, but the county has been very good to me. But old guys like me just, the one supervisor told me, he goes, you know, we should just keep you in the last cage. And then when we have an emergency, we'll break it and get you out. And then when the emergency's over, we'll put you back in there. But I've learned a lot. There's 3 people I've learned a lot from everybody, but the one that gave me the chance to be a foreman and kind of let me do my own thing was Benton Watson. He was our bureau chief. And he kind of let me do my own thing. I mean, he would say, you know, March, when would you like to start to paint? Well, next week. Let me know when you're done. And then his assistant, Jay Nave, which has passed away, Jay pushed me to learn. He wanted me to learn and do all I could, and I respect him for that. And I don't know, there was the first steel strike we ever had, me and another guy took the county tractor trailer up to New York and brought the Bailey Bridge back. We sat down for breakfast at a truck stop, and 2 guys had been killed that night before, so they used to stay. We didn't stay for breakfast, but that was an experience. But, and then the third one would be Gene Wardenfeld, who's passed away. Gene, I would inspect subdivisions for him for signs and guardrail, and he taught me all that, and elevations, and why you put in guardrail and not move the dirt. And Gene was very awesome. I learned a lot from Gene, which has carried me through the Farm Museum and through facilities where I've done a lot of catch basin repair and rebuilding. And I've learned a lot here. I've trying to pass it on to my sons. I have 9 grandchildren, and I hope they pick up on that kind of stuff to learn. And but the county has changed, and old Gomers like me just, we're like a dinosaur, you know. So, but I appreciate the years I've been here, and I appreciate everything the county's done for me, and can't even begin to tell everything we've done. We'd be sitting here till next week this time, but the county, I laid telephone cable for a year when I got out of school, underground cable, and the telephone company wasn't hiring, and I put my application in high school to come to work for the county. Back then, they kept your applications, and they called me and took a pay cut to come here from laying telephone cable. I think I started somewhere around $3 an hour, and the first paycheck was like $110. I'm like, we're gonna starve. But I thank you. I didn't know this was gonna happen. I just was I wanted to sneak out under the wire and go, but doggone it didn't happen.
Well, we are, there's a lot of people watching. You've got family and friends here. Everybody's very proud of you. And to everybody who's here watching this is just truly unique to be able to sit here. I mean, watching your father retire with 47 years is it's just very special. I want to give my fellow commissioners a chance to make some comments. Like I said, we've got a recognition to read, and we're going to ask you to come up for some pictures, but I want to give my colleagues a chance to speak with you as well.
Well, I mean, what can we say? 47 years. I mean, truly a sincere thank you from all of us, but also from the people of Carroll County. I mean, that's just an incredible amount of time that you've put in, heart, soul, and energy. And like you said, you know, having time away from your family to do your job. And, you know, we can't thank you enough for that. And just the incredible institutional knowledge that you learned in your period of being here, and you know, sharing that with other employees. I can't thank you enough, but truly appreciate you being in here today.
Commissioner Kyler, Commissioner Rothstein, any comments?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, in 50 years, you see a lot of changes. And you mentioned OSHA, a lot of changes in that, and safety and HR and different roles, and you've seen it all. You mentioned snow, and people were so dedicated. And of course, back then we didn't have cell phones. I'd have guys call me up and say, "Are you going to call me Christmas? Are you going to call me New Year's? I won't go to a party." Or they'd even give you a phone number. "I'm going to be at so-and-so's, call me there." You guys were so dedicated. You gave up holidays. You did stuff. I love the guys you mentioned. Gene Wardenfeld's that he was concrete. That was his best love was the concrete work, but he was an inspector and then chief of that, and he was detail. And Mr. Burke and Roberta, I'll tell you guys, you couldn't buy him a Coke or a coffee because he said, we're not allowed to have anybody buy us something. You're not allowed to do it. You mentioned Jay, and of course, Gene and Jay, we both lost, and they were awesome. Benton, in the late 60s, we did about 100 miles of tar and chip, and Benton was our first inspector. And that was back with the Buckeye, not a self-propelled. And I was so happy at 16 to have a job. I got to hand broom 100 miles of center seam. And, you talk about privilege, and I felt privileged, but nobody knocked me down, took that broom from me, and you know how you start and the pay rates back then and everything. So thank you so much. And we're losing a lot of knowledge with you. Hate to see you go, but you're right. Something tells you when it's time, and when it's time, you need to do it. So congratulations. I wish I could be there for the photo, which reminds me, Rostein's twice as big as I am on the screen. I guess he's just more important.
Well,
Thank you.
I've often said, Commissioner Kyler, you have a face for radio, so let's just leave it at that. But Rick, congratulations. And like it's been said from my colleagues, you're a true servant leader. You've served selflessly our community. And the really best thing I could just say is thank you. So, and wish you the best in all of your future endeavors and taking care of all those grandkids. Best part about grandkids is you get to bring them in and then give them back. So that's a good thing. And yeah, best of luck to you and your family. So thank you.
And Rick, I'll just add, thank you for everything. And I don't consider you guys dinosaurs. You're guiding lights for the rest of us. And I pray that God blesses you and your loved ones and everything that comes next. Commissioner?
Well, nicely said. Thank you. And with that said, I'm going to read the certificate of recognition to you, Rick, and then we'll have you up for some pictures. And I say we break protocol and get the family up here for a separate picture when we're done. So, certificate of recognition. This certificate is awarded to Rick Barber in recognition of your nearly 48 years of dedicated service with Carroll County government. We celebrate your lifelong career in public service. You began your journey as a laborer foreman in 1977 in the Bureau of Roads Operations, supervising crews in road painting, bridge, sign, and guardrail work. You then moved to the Farm Museum, as you mentioned, as a maintenance specialist, utilizing your skills in masonry, carpentry, and equipment operation, ultimately retired as a maintenance technician in the Bureau of Facilities. You have witnessed extraordinary changes in Carroll County and truly embodied the mission of Carroll County government by ensuring the safety and functionality in our infrastructures. We sincerely thank you for your hard work and dedication and wish you a long and healthy retirement.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Kathy. She's in our family now and has been for 4 years, and I don't know, I wasn't expecting this, but
That's nice.
I want to thank Kathy for doing this.
Yes.
She's come right in after what has happened. She's come right in, so I'm very glad to have her. So thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy, for everything you do.
Yes.
All right, let's get Eric and Rick. Let's come on up then.
Make sure those two in the virtual smile too.
Thank you.
let's
Want
get
the family?
everybody up.
Let's get the whole family up here.
We'll sneak around back.
We'll sneak around back. We have to take, we want to take the tags off.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Good idea.
We're gonna get in the back, we're gonna get out of the way. Everybody, we want to, you got a good center? You want to be next to me? Yeah, here we go. Just turn it off if you want.
Just shift everybody down a little bit.
Yeah. There we go.
In the middle.
There you go.
Great photo, guys.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Congratulations, you exist.
Oh, great. Yeah. Keep it safe, yeah.
So up next, we have American Red Cross Month proclamation.
That's excellent. Good looking family.
Hi, come on, please have a seat. You have anybody with you, or is it just you today?
Just me.
Just you?
How are you? I had to give my business card because now that he's retired, we need volunteers. And with all of Mr. Barber's experience, you know, as you know, the Red Cross disasters, right? And we could definitely use him. So I gave him my business card.
Nothing wrong with
How's
that?
everybody?
Little
Morning.
promotion never hurts, right?
That's,
Yeah, that's great.
let me tell you.
So I will go ahead and read the proclamation, and then I will turn it over to my fellow commissioners for any comments, and then I'll turn it over to you to take us away.
Thank you.
So I have a proclamation for Red Cross Month in March 2025. Whereas, during American Red Cross Month in March, we take time to recognize the compassionate acts of individuals in Central Maryland and reaffirm our commitment to helping our neighbors in need. And whereas Clara Barton founded the American Red Cross more than 140 years ago, generations have stepped up to provide relief and care across our county and around the world, demonstrating the best of humanity in times of crisis. And whereas, advancing this noble mission, the volunteers, blood and platelet donors, and supporters of the Central Maryland chapter remain dedicated to preventing and alleviating human suffering during today's emergencies. Their voluntary and generous contributions serve as a beacon of hope in people's darkest hours, whether it is by delivering shelter, food, and comfort during disasters, providing critical blood donations for hospital patients, supporting service members, veterans, and their families, saving lives with first aid, CPR, AED, and other skills, or providing international aid and reconnecting loved ones separated by global crises. And whereas the Central Maryland chapter of the American Red Cross assists individuals facing emergencies daily, thanks to the support of nearly 1,300 dedicated volunteers and generous donors. We have helped 704 households affected by 392 disasters, most of which were home fires. Our team has collected at 38,824 units of blood at 1,802 local blood drives and trained 18,563 individuals in first aid, CPR, AED, water safety, babysitting, and other life-saving skills. Additionally, the Red Cross has provided 1,235 critical community services to members of the military, veterans, and their families. And whereas this vital work to uplift our community is made possible by those who selflessly answer the call to help whenever and wherever it is needed, we hereby recognize this month of March in honor of their remarkable service and invite everyone to join in their commitment to caring for one another. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Carroll County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim March as Red Cross Month and encourage all citizens of Carroll County to reach out and support its humanitarian mission. Adopted this 20th day of March 2025, signed all 5 county commissioners. Gentlemen, any thoughts?
I'll just be really brief, but I do want to say thank you. I mean, the remarkable service that you all do in so many levels, be it the blood drives or assisting those in need, is remarkable. I know not that long ago we had a storm up here that took down all the power lines, and I know you all were heavily involved with that. So just a heartfelt thank you from me and everybody, because it's just, you all do incredible work, and we need more people like you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Guerra?
I want to echo my thanks. I know that it seems like every few months there's some new disaster in the country, and I'm sure that affects you regionally with resources and what's available and then what's left to handle the next disaster, if you will. So I know it's got to be tough, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Kyler, Commissioner Rothstein, any thoughts?
Yes, thank you for all you do. And my mother and father were both volunteers for Red Cross for probably 20 years. Did a lot of traveling with Red Cross. And after Dad passed, Mom continued to volunteer at blood drives and stuff, didn't do the traveling anymore. But yeah, you guys do so much. And we still do blood drives at Emmanuel Church in Manchester. I know there's always seems to be a blood shortage and a volunteer shortage. So keep telling us what you need. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I concur. Down my area, Wesley Freedom, plus lots of other places, does blood drives. And I don't want to say it's fun, but it's something that Audrey, my son and I, we participate at every opportunity in giving blood at Wesley Freedom. And it's one of those, it doesn't take a lot of time and everybody can participate, especially now that things are lifted on, some of us from the military. And but when I was in the military, the Red Cross did so much for soldiers in my charge and taking care of folks, reaching out to them. It was, again, you can't do it without a total team, and Red Cross was a part of that team. So, and always will be. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, floor is all yours.
Well, as the Executive Director of Central Maryland, it is such an honor to be here today in front of you all. So thank you for acknowledging Red Cross Month and being so supportive of all of for our mission and of all of our services and programs. I can honestly say, yes, there's always a decrease of blood. There is a blood shortage, and we always encourage people to give blood. But we are 90% led by volunteers. And just when I was thinking of Mr. Barber, and now that he's retiring, the average individual that actually is deployed on disasters is 50 and above. I recently came back in October from Hurricane Helene in Milton, and I was deployed down there, and I actually was in a shelter with an 85-year-old woman who was a volunteer.
Wow.
And so I learned so much from that woman alone. And we were hunkered down in a school when Milton hit. And through the grace of God, I'm still here today because we were all so scared because we didn't know what was going to happen. But the stories that you hear alone from our volunteers that are going around the world and supporting the American Red Cross and helping others who are in need, we wouldn't be able to do the work without our volunteers. And so having our donors and our corporations and our foundations support, we don't receive the federal funding like some nonprofit organizations do. So we are blessed with that because we can provide the services. And our next Wednesday is the 1-year anniversary of the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse, and we're going to be with the governor and with some of the families. But that was a time that, you never think it would hit home, right? And I mean, even today, I just constantly look out there and I don't see a bridge, and it's hard because I'm a Baltimorean. But if it wasn't for the community coming together, and that's everybody throughout the state of Maryland helping each other, we couldn't do the work that we do. So thank you.
Thank you for all of your time. Would you be willing to do a photograph with us?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you.
for your work at the Hurricane. That was tough.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you.
And now we will move into the legislative update with Pam Meister. Hello.
Morning.
Morning, Pam. How are you today?
I'm well, thanks. How are you today?
Doing well, thank you. Happy to have you with us as always.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen and get this presentation rolling. Let's see here. Takes a second just to get it all in all the right places so that you can see what you need to see and I can see my notes. Can you see the
Yes,
flag
ma'am.
and is it a good size?
It's good to me.
Looks good.
Okay, great. So there's a lot happening right now. Jumping right in. The continuing resolution that we were waiting on did pass last week, and it's ensuring that the federal government remain in operation through the end of September at funding levels that were similar to previous fiscal years, but we still, are waiting to see what other changes happen that can trickle down. But at least things are not totally stalled. There was a presentation yesterday at MACo's Legislative Committee from several people from the governor's office, and they shared a ton of information about data that they're seeing with the job situation with people who are losing jobs across the state and in general. And I thought this was a particularly interesting image that I copied from their presentation to share with you about the estimated federal contract dollars spent by county. There's a lot of additional data that they are trying to break down by county. And if I receive more, I'll share it with all of you. But there were a few points that were made in the presentation that I think are interesting statewide, and some of which do affect Carroll County. But it's also noteworthy that of the federal jobs that have been lost statewide, Carroll County is not among the top 10 counties with residents. Not totally surprising by location, but still noteworthy as we're looking at kind of how all of the shifts with our new administration and all of the budget issues that we're talking about at all levels of government are impacting Carroll County and the state. There's some more data in your packet. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. That was shared just for you in the notes section, that you can see some things that were mentioned at yesterday's presentation that you just might, want to be aware of. But in general, I think that what's most important to keep in the loop on is kind of where contract dollars are being spent, and keeping abreast of what other potential cuts can impact the county. Right now, there's not a huge number of unemployment cases being filed in the state because a lot of people are being put on administrative leave at the federal government, and also because Carroll specifically doesn't have large numbers. Since February 14th, only 904 unemployment claims have been filed by federal workers in Maryland. So it's just important to kind of keep in the loop and know where that's at. Now, there are ongoing monitoring efforts in the governor's office with weekly calls that counties can participate in. So I'm not sure if anyone's already on those calls or if we want me or someone else to be on those calls, but that's something we can reach out and keep in the loop on where things are going as they track information with the Department of Labor relating to unemployment insurance filings, workforce reductions and changes, and contract spending trends, all of which obviously can trickle down in even in unintended ways. So it was worth sharing because I thought this was pretty interesting yesterday. As it states for the General Assembly and where we are in session, we've passed the crossover date. A feeling that I was getting that was agreed to and noted yesterday by many people who work for MACo and their staff is that this is a unique session. This is different than in past years. And for as long as I've been working in Annapolis, if a bill died or passed, wherever it landed on crossover, it kind of let you know if it had a chance of moving forward. It looks like that's different right now, that somehow in the culture of things with the General Assembly, if it hasn't moved forward, it's less likely to move forward, but there are a number of bills that are still being worked on, primarily, administration and governor priority bills, but there could be other movement. So while I'm going to go through a lot of legislation today and let you know where things land, I don't think all hope is lost if something has not crossed over. I think there's still room to move things. I think that's particularly because of the budget situation this year and how a lot of things were kind of put on hold. But it will be interesting to see what happens because we only have some, like 3.5, give or take, weeks left before sine die. That said, there's lots and lots of talk about a special session, especially in the fall, because of budget issues. So it'll be interesting to see, typically it's a single issue when a legislative session comes in for a special session, but some of these other priorities, you never know if they'll pop back up too. So I think it's important to keep advocating and voicing your opinions and the public's opinions about all the issues, even if we think that it may not move this session, because I think there could be future opportunities. And if not during a special session, certainly in future years. And you can really get a lot done, I think, what I've seen in past years by just keeping on, voicing what's going on. So that's where we are. This is the updated bill counts to see where things are. It's only slightly uptick from last time, of course, and then where things are in committee, keeping in mind that some bills are in multiple committees. Legislation is advancing, and I'm going to just go through a bunch of bills. Last week, you were asking about the sales and use tax, the business-to-business tax. This is the bill that expands the definition of the taxable services to include some businesses and impose a 2.5% state sales and use tax on those services. Generally, it appears that this is not going to go anywhere this year, at least as it was introduced. It's still a proposal and it's being discussed, but it's now focusing on IT services, which would include both business to business and consumer components. And the new proposal is expected to raise about $600 million less than the $1 billion proposal that was originally anticipated when it was introduced. So the governor's office is trying to include this consumer element in the tax to meet the revenue needs. And, when we're looking at the budget, which we're going to talk about in a second, it's important to recognize that, when the House or the Senate and the General Assembly are making shifts in what the governor proposed, they have to kind of find the money elsewhere because it has to be balanced. So it's very tricky and there's a lot going on. And of course, this is happening late in the process. I've heard yesterday through MACO that the House Budget Subcommittee is expected to vote on their recommendations soon, and that the bill could reach the full committee as early as tomorrow. The BRFA includes a significant $250 million in cost shifts to the counties, primarily from teacher pensions, but the House is pushing for the 50% shift, which was the original proposal, rather than the full cost shift that we've been concerned about. So we'll keep our eyes on that. The outlook is still really challenging with what's going on. So delays in passing this budget are causing a lot of other bills to just be held up right now as legislators are looking for ways to identify other revenue sources. So it's very tricky. The governor proposes eliminating itemized deductions right now while increasing the standard deduction. And this would impact counties with higher income earners who are typically itemizing their deductions, more like PG County, maybe Charles County. If Maryland does move to the itemized deduction way of doing things, the state would no longer be linked to the federal changes like the state and local taxes, the SALT taxes, which could insulate Maryland from some federal changes. But this proposal remains under discussion, and there's a lot of talk about how this would impact residents and especially in certain counties. So there's been talk about the credit rating, because with looking at everything that's negative with the fiscal outlook, there are concerns that Maryland could lose its AAA bond rating, and this could have a lot of long-term effects on the financial health of the state, and again, impact the need for a special session. The tax sale bill and other legislative updates, a lot of things that would impact local budgets, such as people who have second homes, the homestead credit, are not moving forward right now. The tax sale bill, which could have led to taking unpaid water and sewer fees to tax sale, has been amended to remove this provision, easing the concerns about fiscal impact on local governments. Specific to Carroll County, like other higher income county earners, there could be an impact by the governor's proposal to eliminate the itemized deductions that I just mentioned. The cost shift with teacher pensions could also be a burden, but that's really to be determined. And with the state's budget process going on with significant challenges on the table, it's really hard to know if the changes in itemized deductions and other potential cuts could impact the county. So we're still really in a place of uncertainty. There's a lot of things that are going kind of into consideration. Michael Sanderson at Mako yesterday had some unofficial thoughts about what he was thinking was going on, but I think in general, you know, it's just his gut instinct that, you know, things are so uncertain that we need to really emphasize what's important with education and things going on in the county, which is why I circulated a memo to you yesterday, which we'll touch on shortly, about the blueprint. I'm just going to try to switch slides here. Here we go. There was also some conversation about transportation funding and regional transit authorities. A hearing was held on highway user revenue, but with the state's fiscal challenges, changes are unlikely this year. The issue remains critical as federal funding uncertainties loom. You're going to keep hearing that. Without legislative action, funding will drop significantly soon, and efforts to maintain current levels are going to continue. Several bills have been proposed offering counties control over projects and funding, and this could free up transportation funds for roads in rural areas if transit costs shift from the Transportation Trust Fund. But it's not expected to pass this year. It remains a key topic for next session, so we should just keep thinking about all of these issues with the Transportation Trust Fund. Blueprint has been something that everyone agrees in Annapolis in terms of the legislators is going to be fully funded, but the reality that was really well explained by Michael Sanderson yesterday that a lot of members apparently don't understand is that they're funding the blueprint at 2018 levels of what they thought was going to be the necessary funding. And this is why a lot of school systems are coming in and saying there's an 8 to 12%, let's say, gap. Maybe don't quote me totally on those figures because it ranges from different jurisdiction, but that the formula is outdated, it's old. And as a result, even though you keep hearing people say they're fully funding Blueprint, they're doing it based on old data, old projections. And as everyone knows, cost of living has gone up, you know, with inflation and everything. And that's a problem because there's a huge gap to fill at the local level. There's conversation about a lot of amendments to realign things for the Blueprint, including reporting on grant changes, teacher incentives for underserved schools, local options for career counseling, and flexible reporting for school administrators. The cost of implementation is a lot higher. So they're looking at how to look at these funding gaps and looking at specific numbers that was in a DLS report that was sent to Mako. Fiscal year 26 requires an additional $500 million of funding. It surpasses the projections by quite a bit. And special education and transportation alone are looking at a $1.5 billion shortfall. Specifically to Carroll County, funding is $21 million more than the last estimate. And schools report a $57 million deficit, according to what was shared with me yesterday. Other county data is in your notes as well, so we're not alone here. There's quite a few. But the next steps are looking at this mandatory audit in 2026 to assess the funding efficiency and possible changes, which a lot of conversation about strategy of where legislators might be thinking about this is to get to that point. So they're trying to get to that point to have this audit that ironically falls, you know, after an election so that they can say, well, you know, we need the data, but we can see some of that now. So that is why you all got an email from yesterday. I based the letter that I sent to you as a draft on Sarah's letter that Commissioner Rothstein referenced with the information provided to me by Mako. Once I shared it with Commissioner Rothstein as a draft, I shared it with Sarah and the Mako team. They just made some minor edits just to make sure that it was strong, which is when I sent it to all of you. I think I've heard from 3 or 4 of you at this point. So my plan is to circulate that to the Carroll County delegation today so that they can see what I'm describing here to you as the challenge and make sure that at least the Carroll County delegation understands and hears from you that there's this concern about the discrepancy in the formula and the potential to make other difficult fiscal decisions if this isn't realigned. There are other bills like the collaborative time bill with key changes. It was proposed to a 4-year pullback, which was reduced, and now the funding will be provided, but the implementation can be delayed to 26. So there's a lot of things that are being done within Blueprint and proposed. Nothing's final yet. As you can see on the slide, it's still in the awaiting committee status, but this is one of those bills, like something will happen at some point, whether it's this bill or a different piece of legislation to try to make some adjustments. It's just about how and where. So if, in addition to the letter that I sent to you, as I go through some of these other things that I've learned and anything you're hearing, if we do want to send letters and speak up, I think it's worthwhile, even if it feels like you're, repeating yourself or you've talked to someone, whether it's for this year or future years, this is going to be something that we're looking at, as you know, for a long time. The community school programs funding was initially a proposal to freeze funding for 2 years. That's been reversed. It'll be provided as originally intended, I believe. Also, the proposal for new grant funding for teacher improvement and retention was cut. And the Senate is looking at possibly reinstating some of the rollback, but this is still uncertain. The Senate and the House have a lot of different views on how funding should be implemented, and this is obviously going to have a big issue, all of this on the budget. Career counseling programs is another issue that's been coming up over and over again. And there were 3 bills that were discussed to adjust this, aimed at middle school programs, high school programs, and students through workforce development. I have some notes for that in your packet that you can take a look at. Were intended to manage development boards, community colleges, and other local entities. It was framed as a pilot. It was just a suggestion. It's not a foundation for the program at all. So there was a lot of opposition that came about, and these bills were eventually killed due to the aggressive stance taken by proponents. Just taking a look to see if there's anything else important worth noting here, because there's a lot of content to get through today. It's expected that this conversation is going to continue, so I'll keep you abreast of any other changes related to Blueprint. Now moving on to another hot topic this session, the Housing for Jobs Act. This again is something MACo supported with amendments and is still in the committee of the original chamber, which is atypical at this time, but it's something that's likely to still get some action here. It's a key piece of housing legislation aimed at addressing the state's housing shortage by setting a jobs to housing ratio for jurisdictions. Just to remind you what this one's about. Jurisdictions above the set ratio would have to, they'd be subject to a land use preemption. So they would lose local control over zoning decisions. MACo initially supported this with amendments. Efforts to engage the governor's office have been limited by them, and they haven't received a lot of responses to the county's all the different county feedback. In its current form, MACo is in what they call a kill posture, as necessary amendments have not been made. Some of the major concerns related to vesting provision. The issue is that the bill includes a hidden provision changing Maryland's vesting law from late vesting to early vesting, which benefits the developers and could lead to long-term negative impacts for local jurisdictions. Developers could bypass updated community standards, apparently, if they don't begin construction immediately, which could then lead to outdated, unsuitable practices. So there's unintended consequences that they've seen in other states like New Jersey that have led to a lot of lawsuits and some challenges that are complicating things for local governments. Both chambers of the General Assembly aren't happy with the bill's contents at this point. Some things that could happen: the House could move forward with its own housing targets legislation, which could look very different from the governor's proposal. MACo is also prepared to introduce its own draft bill in response to potential changes or new developments, depending what happens. There's a lot of efforts continuing by MACo in different counties to engage with the governor's office and legislators to address the current issues with this bill. And we're going to just stay in the loop with MACo to learn what they're learning and what else we can hear from our delegation. If necessary, amendments aren't made, MACo is prepared to advocate for full rejection of this particular bill. So we just need to keep talking about transparency and keeping things focused on the respect for local land use authority and highlighting any other concerns that might disproportionately hurt local communities in any way. So that's where we are with this bill. House Bill 1084, Senate Bill 942, Correctional Services, Medication-Assisted Treatment Funding, focuses on individuals in local detention centers aiming to get the state into compliance paying for the program. A consensus bill was sponsored in collaboration with stakeholders, including the governor's office, Department of Health, and the wardens, which would require the state fund this using opioid restitution funds. The bill stipulates that detention centers must demonstrate that they applied for at least one grant in the fiscal year for which they're requesting reimbursement. And if it's not awarded, the detention centers need to show that they've applied and awarded the grant. And it would be deducted from the state reimbursement. This was negotiated later in the process, and it's been generally accepted by everyone, we think. The bill passed through hearings, no opposition, and full consensus. And it looks like there's delays for lack of clarity with this bill, and different committees have been working on it. but it looks like the bill's progress has been stalled because the opioid restitution funds being tied to the broader budget conversation, which has not yet been resolved. So it's still in progress. This is just something that was brought up at MACO yesterday, so I thought I would share it with you. And then also another bill raised for conversation that's been moving along that MACO brought up again that we talked about, I think, earlier in the session, was the Public Safety Immigration Enforcement Bill, Maryland Values Act. It requires state and local law enforcement to detain certain people for up to 48 hours upon request from federal immigration authorities and transfer them. But it also prohibits the state and local governments and law enforcement agencies from entering into new immigration enforcement agreements. This passed third reading in the House and is now being heard in the Senate. The original bill required detention centers and law enforcement to detain individuals unlawfully present and convicted of a violent crime at the request of ICE. It also included a statewide prohibition. Key changes are that MACO's initial position was support with amendments that would allow detaining individuals only with a binding legal document. The bill was amended to clarify that detention centers do not have to detain individuals past their lawful sentence and that ICE requests be supported by an active immigration detainer. So it now allows for voluntary information sharing with ICE, but restricts formalized agreements. So it no longer requires the formal agreements. The informal cooperation is kind of like a handshake, and it aims to balance collaboration with protecting against unconstitutional detention. There's no Senate cross-file. Counties currently participating in the program can continue their operations as before, but they cannot sign new formal agreements with ICE. The change is intended to maintain flexibility without formalizing immigration enforcement relationships. It strives, this bill, to strike a balance with collaboration, with respecting individual rights, and future action by MACO and in general just depends on how the bill moves forward. So this was just something I thought you'd want to know was going on. We've talked a lot about the family leave extension implementation earlier in session. The proposal to delay the Maryland State Family Leave Program by 18 months. The new timeline would see the deductions starting in January of 2027 with benefits becoming available the following year. And under the current timeline, the payroll deductions would begin in July, which is coming soon. So the Department of Labor has not yet made the necessary regulatory requirements, so there's a lot of questions. The delay is concerning from public employers, particularly because they're working with MACO and MML, who are seeking assurances that they won't find themselves in the same situation with approaching deadlines without any answers. And there's a lot of concern that there could be a requirement with early reporting obligations for the state plan, especially if we're looking at other options with private plans that are still requiring contributions to the state program. So there's a lot of frustration. Right now, efforts are being made to address these issues through amendments, but there's still no bill. So the Department of Budget and Management proposed a bill and appropriations. It didn't fully align with the desired changes. The delay wasn't sufficient. The proposal has been sent to Economic Matters Committee, and stakeholders have provided feedback. Right now, it appears the Department of Labor is holding things up, and we are seeing some support from Delegate Wilson for the side of employers. We're seeing that he wants something to happen before the legislative session ends, and he's spoken up about that. Right now, we're waiting for these negotiations to come forth, and I will keep you abreast of anything else that's coming forward. Efforts are being focused on a practical solution before sine die. So we'll see what happens. To be continued. All right, take a second here. I've got a lot of work. Now, House Bill 208, Senate Bill 124 is the Employment Standards Firefighters Payment of Wages and Payroll Information. This passed third reading in the House and has been referred to Finance. The Senate version of the bill did not come out of committee. But with a lot of the bills that I'm going to go through today, you're going to see that they crossed over one side or the other, which is really all it usually needs to get momentum. It's, of course, more likely to see consensus and a positive outcome sooner if you're seeing action by both sides. But sometimes they're just moving it from one side or the other to keep it alive, and you'll see things moving forward. The bill undermines collective bargaining by introducing a 42-hour scheduling rule. Any time worked over 42 hours would require overtime pay. counties would have two main options. They could change the schedule and hire more firefighters, which would be difficult for retention issues. And they could maintain the current schedule, but have to pay a minimum of 6 hours of overtime for every firefighter who worked over 42 hours. So this bill looks at paid firefighters. Not all counties, have issue with this. The House adopted an amendment, but it's not super helpful. It essentially reinforces current law, stating that the county already has a current provision with the current contract that the mirrors in the bill requirement, and the bill would not apply to them. It doesn't make any significant changes. Being that the bill is now in the Senate, there's rumor that the chair of Finance Committee is not eager to move it forward, and that leadership in the Senate is not supportive of the bill. So there's definitely pressure from firefighters that might intensify this. But because of the fiscal impact on counties and the budget situation, it's looking like this issue that is shifting right now. The firefighters are reportedly leaving the session with some progress on the cancer screening plans, which may be positive for them rather than just this bill. So that's just something that's been brought up in conversations related to it. And as of now, it's unlikely to see this moving forward in the Senate because it's in the drawer, as they put it. But you never know, and we'll keep you abreast as I learn more about this particular bill. House Bill 768, Senate Bill 546, municipal corporations, county commissioners or county council requiring approval of referendum requests. This bill requires an organizing committee to assess and report on proposed municipal incorporations to the county commissioners or county council. If at least 40% of registered voters in the proposed area sign a valid petition for incorporation, the county must approve a referendum request through a process that's outlined. This has been apparently brought up for like 4 or 5 years. Harford County at least, it is looking at removing county approval from the incorporation process. And this sounds really familiar, something that was raised when I worked in Harford County years ago. It's been a long time discussion. It has been brought up also in Charles County and other areas. MML and governments have been strongly opposed to this idea because of concerns over potential impacts of such corporations. The primary issue with the bill is that it essentially cuts the government out of the process, even though incorporation can have significant implications for the county services and finances. And the concern is that once an area becomes incorporated municipality, it can bypass county regulations, particularly related to land use and adequate public facilities. And it can relate to, ignoring school overcrowding. So some of the small towns in Montgomery County exist primarily for the purpose of collecting their portion of income taxes, which they then return to residents without necessarily providing corresponding services, which creates a fiscal imbalance. At least that's what was shared when describing this in the MACO meeting. So despite the opposition, the arguments for incorporating municipalities are becoming louder over the years. So this looks like this bill is, coming up over and over again. And I don't know that it's going to move this year, but it's something to keep an eye on because it keeps coming back. So just food for thought. House Bill 42, an interesting bill on farm organics and wasted food reduction and diversion grant program. It passed third reading in the House and is referred to the Senate committees. This bill addresses farm organics and wasted food diversion grant program. It's been introduced multiple times over the years, but hasn't passed anywhere and made any momentum until this year in the House. It proposes the creation of 2 grant programs for counties to apply for aimed at supporting food diversion efforts, which would improve solid waste infrastructure at the county level. It initially contained language that would have required counties to raise tipping fees to fund the food diversion grant programs, but this has now been removed from the bill. And given the changes included in the removing of this language, MACO is supporting the bill as it's currently written, since it would provide additional resources for counties to improve their food waste management systems. Another bill brought up yesterday in the Legislative Committee, which I don't think I brought this one up before you this year, but maybe, is the Davis-Martinez Public Employee Safety and Health Act. It's named after David Martinez, a parole officer who was murdered, and it aims to provide oversight for public bodies, including local governments, concerning employee safety and health. It was initially too restrictive and redundant, but it's been amended, and the House has taken out all of the amendments and gone even further. Penalties related to election officials and civil penalties have been removed from the bill, addressing some of the concerns that were raised in the original version. MACO staff recommendation is that the House version of the bill now aligns with the amendments is not a major concern, and they didn't want to take a position at MACO because it's been amended appropriately. The Senate, though, however, has from MACO a support with amendments position because it has not yet incorporated the changes. So my notes are kind of related to what happened in the MACO meeting that you'll see there. And given that, it's moving, so we'll see what happens with this piece of legislation as session evolves. House Bill 731, 635, wildlife protection and wildlife crossings passed third reading and has been referred to the opposite chamber. This was considered dead in the beginning and it wasn't expected to move forward, but a pared down version of the bill did pass. It's looking like we are going to continue through MACO, or MACO is going to continue to support it with amendments. The primary concern is that wildlife connectivity be part of the comprehensive plans. It's not appropriate. Counties already have other planning documents where this topic is addressed, and the recommendation is to amend the bill so that wildlife connectivity and crossings are addressed outside of the comprehensive plan so that there's not unnecessary additions. Seeing if there's anything else important to note on this one. Just keep you in the loop as this one moves forward. Third reading passed and referred to budget and taxation for the land use transit-oriented development alterations. MACO initially supported it with amendments, but after the House made significant revisions, they decided yesterday to revisit this and now are opposing the bill. This bill related to natural resources and public lands also has passed third reading and has been crossed over. Anything significant to share? I'm just looking at my notes. I don't think at this point. And now I'm just going to kind of go through more quickly some of the other bills because there's quite a lot here to get through. The criminal history background check bill is moving forward at this point. It's passed, so we're looking positively on that one this year. Hopefully we'll see that to continue to move. I'll keep working with the delegation. The solar energy production bill here also passed. It's moving forward. You'll see that a lot of these issues are now moving forward related to solar transmission lines in the ways that we were hoping. So that'll keep you posted. You can look through your packets. It has a reminder of what each bill is about and where it is, but you can see highlighted in yellow on the screen as I just kind of scroll through these bills where things are moving. We did send the letter about this football game legislation opposing it last week. So that has been received by all of the members, but it has passed, as I noted, I think it was already last week, to cross over. The Cyber Maryland program revisions is looking like it's moving forward at this point, as is the community water and sewage systems moving in the Senate at this point, at least. And we're seeing the public facilities bond bill moving forward. Don't be alarmed, it's only one side. I did talk to Senator Reedy's legislative director, Meg, who confirmed it's okay that it's only been one house, it's moving along. So that's the authorization that we were looking for to empower the county to borrow finances next year. The Maryland Heritage Area Authorities funding and grants passed third reading. It's moving along. Solar energy systems and tax exemptions is moving along right now, despite MACO's opposition. They're continuing to work that. Housing authorities tax exemption status passed third reading. The solar buildings technology, we talked about this earlier this year, is moving along. Transmission line advancement technologies passed third reading. Property taxes, authority of counties to establish a subclass and set a special rate for commercial industrial properties. It authorizes counties to tax different property types at varying rates like municipalities, and allows a higher rate for commercial industrial properties. Passed the House, is now headed to the Senate. All of these post crossover bills are ones that I just don't know what are going to happen. Typically would not move because they didn't get favorable reports, but we're going to just touch a couple of them briefly. Sunday hunting, we have sent around a letter of suggested amendments to clarify language. I think besides just the opposition that we've discussed, the way the bill was drafted, I think was confusing. I think we kept talking about deer hunting, but it covered more than deer hunting. There's different ways to approach this. So looking at next year, if this doesn't move, I think we should look at rewriting the bill to be really clear and either considering restricting hunting hours that align with some of the counties like Calvert, Caroline, Charles, Dorchester, Queen Anne, Somerset, Worcester, and Wacomico, where hunting is permitted certain hours, like 30 minutes before sunrise to 10:30 a.m., or limiting the expansion to allow hunting on all Sundays during the season, but for only deer, and removing the game birds and other game mammals. Just something to think about. It may get more momentum. It's not dead yet, of course, but it has from crossover, so it can't necessarily move yet. Now, the unpaid personal property taxes bill has not seen any movement yet either. And then the hotel rental tax collection by the comptroller. This one they're saying could move and has discussion to be determined, but right now it's status quo, as is the moderate income housing fee in lieu of prohibition bill that we've talked about. Same thing here with House Bill 885. Collective bargaining, local government employees and Public Employee Relations Act has not moved either. And a few of these others that I'm just going to scroll through to see if there's anything worth mentioning. The Decade Act has not moved either. We're still awaiting a report. So there's a lot of bills that were big and talked about that are just sitting there that I don't know are going to happen. BRFA will move forward. We just don't have that yet. I talked about that earlier. Same with the energy bills. I think they will move forward. Right now, Senate Bill 937, 1035. Originally, there was no position taken by MACO. It's looking like there was a letter sent by ML and MACO jointly, and it's still being monitored, so we'll see what happens. House Bill 1036, 931 didn't pass beyond crossover, but it's still expected to pass. This is one that they're still working on negotiations with the Senate President and the Speaker's office, and lots of amendments are still being discussed. So some of the potential issues are a provision to limit county access to appeals for renewable energy projects. That could pose a problem. There's a few other things that they're watching, so I'll keep you posted when we learn more. Otherwise, it looks like we are just kind of waiting to see how the budget gets resolved, which I think will then become very telling for some of these remaining issues that haven't had action. So that's where we're at this week. It's a lot. I'm here to take any questions or thoughts from all of you today, and I'll keep you posted as we continue to move through session.
Well, Pam, thank you as always for your thoroughness and being on top of all of this and keeping us informed, and for working with our delegation down in Annapolis. My fellow commissioners, any thoughts or comments?
Just thank you, Pam. I'm going to send you an email later on a couple things I want to run by you just to get your thoughts.
Okay, thank you. I'll look out for that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for listening to all of that.
Commissioner Kyler, any thoughts?
Just thank you.
All right, Pam, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, now we will move into the FY25 agency budget hearings portion of the agenda. First, we'll invite Carroll Community College, Dr. Mintz up, and anybody else who wants to join her.
While they get set up, we're going to give you a handful of things.
You're comfortable with doing the forwarding? We just let her know and we'll not line, click forward. No, it says names. Just start on the slide and then I'll go forward.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Here, I'll take his as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Heidi, was it just the three of those?
Just the three of them for the community college.
Thank you very much. Dr. Mintz, take it away.
All right, thank you so much. So thank you for providing us with this time to meet with you, to explain our budget situation and to request supplemental funding. With me to speak with you today is Vice President of Administrative Services, Patty Davis, business owner and Carroll Community College longtime Board of Trustees member, Mr. David Bollinger, and Vice President of Workforce Business and Community Education, Dr. Kelly Cormer. As we discuss our funding and our requests with you, I hope that you will be listening to identify opportunities for the community college to meet your needs, the county's needs. We believe strongly that additional facilities are needed to meet the county's workforce and learning needs, and we are open to your ideas about how we can partner to achieve the goal of making new facilities on our campus a reality. We recently have hit upon major challenges with renovations to the North Carroll Pantherplex that will delay our ability to rent space from them for at least 1 year. That means significant lost revenue to the college. So we strongly believe that leasing space is not the long-term answer for our students and our county. And now Ms. Davis is going to lead us through the presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So first, I just wanted to frame, before we go into what our requests are, the Maryland state funding to the community colleges. Wanted to point out that beyond the CAVE funding formula challenges, our college faces significant revenue reductions. Sorry, let me back up.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, let's start over. The CAVE funding formula comparison. I just want to frame this because I know there's a lot of conversation around the CAVE funding formula, and we were fully funded at the target statutory rate in fiscal years 23 and 24, but it was reduced down to 27.2% per student per funding for the four-year university institutions per FTE. The governor's FY26 proposed budget includes an 8% increase to the college over the fiscal year 25 allowance, and that includes the small community college grant. Despite the proposed increase for next fiscal year, in fiscal year 26, the college faced financial challenges in the current year, including a reduction of approximately $500,000 in state aid for fiscal year 25 over fiscal year 24. And this reduction occurred instead of what we were planning on if we had been funded at the targeted amount, which would have been an increase of $900,000 in the CAVE funding formula. Just to put it into context and the implications to the college, the persistent gap between the current 27.2% and the original 29% target represents critical resources our college cannot access. While we appreciate the 8% increase in the proposed budget, the ongoing shortfall hampers our ability to fully serve our growing student population. The annual rebasing of the CAVE funding formula creates a compounding negative effect on our college's finances. As each year's funding calculation builds upon the previous year's reduced allocation rather than the intended 29% target statutory level, this represents a substantial funding gap that could otherwise support essential educational services, infrastructure improvements, and student success initiatives. Another area where we are receiving reduced revenue is regarding the waivers that are required by the college. So beyond the CAVE funding formula, the challenges our college faces significant revenue reductions from mandatory statutory waivers. Since FY22, these waivers represent the largest growth area, which is the dual enrollment. While the public school system and ultimately the county funds dual enrollment, our college must offer these credits at a discounted rate. This mandated discount directly reduces our revenue despite requiring the same level of services for each student. To put this into context, in fiscal year 24, the college served approximately 375 FTE dual enrollment students. That consisted of 986 distinct students in the fall semester and 1,040 distinct students in the spring semester. The combination of the CAVE funding formula rebasing and growing statutory waivers creates a dual financial pressure on our institution. While we remain committed to providing affordable, high-quality education to our students, Including these covered waivers, these growing financial constraints significantly impact our operational capacity. So as we go on and start to discuss the funding requests, we have two in the operating, which are the additional salary supplemental request at $514,600. The funding incorporated back into the fiscal year 26 operating budget of $120,200 for the entrepreneurship program, and then the capital request that we had submitted for the Athletic and Applied Technology Center. So the goal is to provide a total of 4% salary increase for our employees. That would be a combination of a 2% supplemental county contribution and a 2% which the college built into our proposed fiscal year 26 operating budget. To put some context around this, when we examine our competitive position against our neighboring institutions, the challenges become even more apparent. Overall, our average faculty compensation lags 13% below our neighboring colleges. As you can see, we're 13 out of 16 in the Maryland community colleges. The strategic implications are interconnected of these financial constraints. It's directly affects talent acquisition and retention. It creates a geographic vulnerability with our faculty and staff who can significantly increase their earnings without relocating. And while our dedicated employees remain committed to delivering outstanding academic experiences despite these pressures, the widening compensation gap jeopardizes our long-term capacity to sustain the level of excellence that we have. To further give a comparison, we were examining the history of salary investments across Carroll County's major public employers. As a concerning pattern emerges that highlights the college's disadvantaged position. These persistent disparities have created a compounding effect over time. Each year that our salary increases trail those of the other agencies, the county government and the public schools, our competitive position for talent attraction and retention weakens further. The historical pattern helps explain our current rankings as we are 13th among the Maryland 16th Community College for faculty compensation. As you can see, we put in here the changes between the 5-year, 10-year, and 15-year. And as you get further into the 10-year and 15-year, you notice that the county government and the public schools are pretty comparable along the lines, and the community colleges consistently lags. When we start looking at it based on the same starting point of $60,000 salary benchmark, the college would have an increase of $18,269,000 over a 10-year period, whereas the county government is increasing over $29,000 and the public schools is increasing over $27,000. And this clearly demonstrates how the significantly lower historical salary increases at the college have created a substantial compensation gap compared to the other local public sector employees. Our proposed 4% increase, combining the college's 2% and requested county 2%, represents an important step towards addressing not just the current regional gaps, but also this historical pattern of underinvestment relative to the other public employers in the county. The shared investment in our employees is an investment in Carroll County's educational future and workforce development. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kermer to go through the county business startup and acceleration.
Thank you, Patty. Good morning.
Good morning.
The college is very pleased to be able to create an ecosystem for business startup and acceleration. And we work with multiple partners throughout the county to achieve this, and we have a three-pronged system for achieving it, including the Miller Resources for Entrepreneurs that serves our budding entrepreneurs with entrepreneurial ideations, but not necessarily a method to get there. Our Small Business Development Center, supported through a grant through the Small Business Administration, supports small and mid-sized businesses in growth and acceleration. And our Business Solutions arm provides workforce development and training for organizations, including the county and many businesses throughout the region, to help them grow their workforce and become economically more viable. With regard to the Miller Entrepreneurship Grant that the county has provided over many years, we have seen that it has a significant economic impact, and it is a strong investment for the county, which yields a $65 return for every dollar invested. To break some of those numbers down and to see how we get there, this year, the Miller Resources for Entrepreneurs has served over 115 new clients, 33 of which have already started new businesses. And a business start for Miller means that there is a formal organization of that business through an LLC or a subchapter S, and they have generated revenue. Miller has also supported 245 client meetings to date and 30 workshops. What this results in is an economic impact of about $7.8 million for the county. This represents the ripple effect of income injected into the economy from businesses that Miller has supported that exist more than 1 year out. I know that there's been some concerns as to what happens as far as businesses that no longer exist. And certainly there is a national average of 49% of all businesses within their first year fail. However, the survey that we have conducted are of businesses that have been in business for more than 1 year and continue to operate in the county. So the economic impact data is generated based upon existing businesses that are healthy and operating in this county. Qualitatively, you'll see that there are numerous results from our survey as to the impacts that Miller has had on business startups, ranging from confidence to actual implementation of items that are learned in Miller workshops that result in tangible increases in business, such as the Miller client that saw a 35% increase in customer participation after participating in a Miller social media workshop. So we are asking the county to continue this wise investment so that it continue to help budding entrepreneurs and start and grow their businesses in the county. And with that, I will turn it back to Ms. Davis.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to discuss the capital request for the athletic facility and applied technology and trade center. The request was for the combined buildings. It was split between the county and the state. While the ratios change from year to year, we basically go with a 50-50 split between the county and the state. And if the project were funded, we would adjust based on what the state ratio is, which might be slightly less for the county, but this is at a 50-50 rate. You might say it's not quite 50-50 because there is the program cost that's included that is funded by the county. Just to put some context around this, the community college, the list of the buildings is shown on this slide. And as you can see, we have not had a new building in over 15 years. Our last building was our newest building, which is the K classroom building. You can see from this perspective, the college's campus infrastructure has reached a critical point where our strategic investment is necessary. As we continue to expand and develop our industry-aligned programs to meet the critical workforce needs, our campus infrastructure has forced difficult compromises. We've had to lease expensive off-campus space for growing skilled trades programs that address workforce strategies throughout the county, creating financial inefficiencies, service fragmentation, and transportation barriers. And as Dr. Mintz has mentioned, we are now delayed also by upwards of the 2 semesters a year in our current leasing capacity. Additionally, our campus has always lacked a regulation-sized gymnasium, leaving us with only an undersized physical education facility, which is inadequate for any official indoor sports, and our fitness center and athletic training facilities can no longer support the growing student demand and specialized athletic training needs. Our regional peer institutions have invested in modern facilities that serve the powerful recruitment tools for students and faculty alike, offering proper athletic facilities and specialized technical training spaces on a single integrated campus. And without similar investments in our campus infrastructure, we face a widening gap with what employers expect and what our students in the community need, and what our current facilities can reasonably provide. As we move on, I know this is like not a wonderful slide for a presentation, but I thought it was worth sharing. This is information from the state. And over the past decade, 11 of our 16 Maryland community colleges have built new facilities. As you can see, it's a county and state investment of over $1 billion in infrastructure. And these investments have created modern learning facilities across the state, including healthcare, STEM, workforce development, athletics, and student services. So worth noting is that our neighboring institutions like Howard Community College have had 3 major projects totaling over $223 million, which included a dedicated workforce development and trades building, as well as Montgomery County receiving 4 projects over $350 million. But really what is worth pointing out is that Warwick Community College, which is similar in size to Carroll, has received over $46 million, which included an applied technology center, similar to what we are requesting. The disparity in infrastructure investment compared to those in the surrounding counties where modern community college facilities are supporting athletic and health professions and the trades is apparent, and it directly is in to support our workforce development and economic growth. To give a little more context, in addition to the building funding for capital project, the state also provides additional funding for various projects throughout the state. As you can see, Carroll Community College is on here with a split between local funding and state funding. And that was $12 million combined funding for systemic renovations to our campus infrastructure, which included the building envelope restoration, fire alarm, boiler, and chiller replacements for our county buildings, which we're currently still working through the process of implementing those projects.
So we'll take a moment to pause. We've thrown an awful lot at you, and we know that we're going very quickly. We invited Mr. Bollinger to speak with you this morning as a local business owner and also as a 24-year member of the Carroll County Board of Trustees, and I know he's well known to all of you, so we're going to let Dave speak now from the heart.
I think I was 15 when I came on the board.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Today we're going to talk about the college's capital funding needs for our proposed athletic facility and our applied technology and trade center projects. As mentioned, the last building added to our campus was in 2009, over 19 years ago, while 11 of our 16 community colleges have built new facilities in just the past decade. The consequences are intangible and have forced lease off campus space at considerable expense for our growing skilled trade programs. Our Board of Trustees approved an intercollegiate sports program in 2018, recognizing athletics as an essential part of our mission. Our gymnasium does not meet standards for regulation play of indoor sports. Actually, I'd call it a half court, full court for your basketball players. And the fitness center, built in 2002, doesn't have what we need, plus it has limitations, forced enrollment restrictions in those particular programs. The proposed facility would support expanded degree programs in exercise science and related healthcare fields while enabling proper hosting of intercollegiate and intramural sports competitions. It would provide much-needed space to expand employee wellness programs and create a versatile venue for community athletic events and special programs, and would also enhance our partnership with our Carroll Recreation and Parks, maximizing the facility's benefit to the entire community. Our technical education programs face similar challenges to the athletic programs. We have signed a lease for off-campus space for skilled trades programs because we've already converted every available general-purpose classroom into specialized training spaces on our main campus. Local employers struggle to find skilled workers while students face fragmented educational experiences across multiple locations. The proposed Allied Technology and Trade Center would address these challenges by consolidating programs currently scheduled across different locations and creating capacity for additional high-demand workforce programs. For nearly 2 decades, we've stretched and adapted within our existing footprint. We've reached the limits of what we can do, and we need to expand without expansion. The athletic facility and applied technology and trade center directly address educational workforce, community needs, and can't be met through any other means. Actually, physical infrastructure enables educational opportunity. We request your support for this capital funding. not only for our students of today, but for students of the next generations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And so as we look at what some of the other community colleges have been able to do, I have to explain to our Board of Trustees why we are not taking advantage of state funding to build a new facility. And so, as Patty said, with the sharing of that cost at roughly a 50-50 split, we are asking for that long-term commitment to the college, not necessarily for today, but we would like to be able to tell our community that in the next 5 years, hopefully, perhaps 10, if we have to go that far, when we will be able to add this facility so that we can start the planning now and we can set money aside and we can make sure that we are bringing this facility to bear for the county. The way that we have been approaching this for the past 4 or 5 years has been in an annual request to the county that has been denied, and we understand that looking annually, the money is not sitting there available for this purpose, but coming each year and being told no is not how we can move forward. So again, we're asking you to partner with us and allow us to partner with you to look ahead to meet the needs of the county and figure out this long-term view, how we can get to the ultimate goal. So that's what I'll leave with and open it up if you have any questions for us.
Gentlemen, any questions, thoughts?
Can you, are you comfortable sharing with us this time the progress on the turf field? My understanding was that maybe it's in the site development phase or something's been going on there.
Something has been going on there. So starting with the initial $2.1 million commitment from the county, our foundation has raised additional matching funds to allow the project to proceed. The original project figures are years old now. So when we brought them up to modern time and decided, what is the full cost going to be, it's now well over $5 million. And our foundation has committed to putting forward the full amount that's needed so that the project can move forward. So with that commitment, I'll turn it back to Patty to let you know exactly where we are. We have soil samples. We have some things happening.
Certainly, as Dr. Mintz mentioned, we have completed the soil samples, and we are right now still working with Clark Azar, who is the consultant working with the county to develop the timeline. We're anticipating the final budget. We have a pretty solid projection, trying to hit it right after our fall soccer season, and with the intent of being able to have the turf laid, the track laid, and be available within the fiscal 1 year after the initial start of the project.
Okay, thank you. It's exciting.
It is exciting. Thrilled with that.
Commissioner Kyler, we cannot see you, but if you have any thoughts or comments, we'd certainly be welcome.
No, great presentation. Nice seeing you guys. And it's a tough budget year, but we need to take everybody's recommendations into consideration. So again, thanks. I think a very good both slides and verbal presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. And the next segment of our FY25 agency budget hearings, we will hear from the Sheriff's Office and our sheriff. Thank you very much.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, everybody. Morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for a few moments to make an additional budget request. I'm going to introduce some of the folks that are here real quick. To my right is Lieutenant Phil Lawrence, oversees SRO for my office, but also is my tactical commander. Of course, you know Director McDonald. Behind me is the Undersheriff, Rich Hart. The acting warden is Dave Stem. You remember him from being in the patrol side, but he's moved over to the jail. Justin Baker is a new major. You'll see his face now that he's retired from Howard County Police Department as the deputy chief down there. He's a county boy. His kids went to school here. One of them is still in school here. I believe the other one, Justin, is at Carroll Community? Yes. Which just had their presentation. So Justin will run patrol for me. So everything that deals with law enforcement, you'll see Justin and Glenday and the folks that you've seen in the past. But he's a great addition to my office. Ashley Owens, I think, is back there. He's the FOP president, and I don't believe I missed anyone. Okay, I think I got everybody. First, I had an opportunity to look at my recommended budget. Jake Dellinger is our analyst and does a fabulous job working with us to prepare a budget for the next FY year. But not only that, he's working with us because it's complex. I have two 24/7, 365 operations, and Jake is working with us every single day on making sure that that budget is accurate and that the things that we move are accommodated by him. So he does a wonderful job helping us throughout the year. So in addition to the recommended budget, we're asking for one-time funding to purchase a new Lenco Bearcat Generation 3 rescue vehicle for our SWAT team. We currently operate a 2005 Lenco Bearcat Generation 1, which if you do the math is now 20 years old. The vehicle is assigned to our SWAT team and goes on every operation they are deployed to. It currently has over 1,000 operations. The most recent was just yesterday morning. Used for executing search and seizure warrants, barricaded individuals, and in 2015, the Baltimore riots for almost a week. It's the lifeline and protection for the team and provides the ability to get up front and close to a target location to handle any situation. The irony about the 2015 riots is we were one of the few organizations in the region that had a Lenco Bearcat or a vehicle that could go down in that situation and actually operate, and it was used extensively. They were calling for these vehicles, anybody that really had one to come in and support their operations. And as you guys know, I spent over 20 years with the Maryland State Police, including their SWAT team as an operator, and I retired in 2014 as the commander of the State Police SWAT team. Tactics have changed in my 30 years in this specialty. Best practices, along with legislation, limited how search and seizure warrants were conducted and could be executed, highlighting the need to have a Lenco Bearcat on every operation. My team has not done a no-knock warrant in many years, meaning we do not exit a vehicle at 2 o'clock in the morning, quietly walk up to a house, take a battering ram, knock someone's door in, and run into their house. We always do a surrounding call out. We will give people an opportunity to actually get themselves up and come to us. If it gets to a point where they're not answering a door, then we do limited things to get into a house without doing the tactics that I learned back in 1994 when I became a state police SWAT team operator. Negotiators, drone operators, and medics are often in the APC to deploy resources to the incident in a timely manner to either perform a rescue or take an individual into custody. Mrs. McDonald's going to go through the PowerPoint. There's only 4 slides. Just a couple weeks ago, we were in the southern end of the county. Our tactics have gotten different to the extent where we've got to be able to deploy folks that can provide a rescue from the vehicle, but we're also deploying drones from the vehicle. So a couple weeks ago, and I think this video will highlight that, we had to use the ram on the front of the APC to penetrate the front door. We knew someone was held up in the house, and then my drone operator was able to walk a drone into the front door, set it in their living room, and actually communicate with them through the drone, and we can see them in the house. That technology obviously did not exist when I was doing this, and it saves lives. It saves my deputies' lives, and it saves the lives of the individuals that we're seeking to take into custody without hurting them. Our current Bearcat has served its purpose and still needs to until we can secure funding for a new one. It simply has 0 technology in the current one, and we've made our own modifications to it. The students at Career and Tech made a 20-foot-long steel ram for the front of it. We realized the need for the ram after seeing incidents around the country that require teams to get closer to hostile situations and breach doors safely, so teams can quickly get into locations or to deploy drones or robots safely. As you can imagine, we've put a lot of money into regular maintenance and breakdowns along the way with this vehicle, as it is 20 years old. Additionally, we've swapped out the windshield for it twice. It doesn't have side mirrors, so you really can't see anything coming up to the side of you. It has zero technology. It's small, and some of the team members have to sit on the floor in the back of it to get everyone into the back. You actually physically have to get out of the vehicle to turn the hubs to put it into four-wheel drive, which if we have to put it in four-wheel drive, we have to back it out from where we're at, put it in four-wheel drive and reposition it. The students that built us the Ram for the front of it, they did a wonderful job, and it has been used extensively for our operations since we've had it built. But what it does is it and you'll see in the video, it kind of extends 20 feet out from the front of it. We wanted to be able to design something that makes it go north and south so that we can move it a few inches north and south so that we can put it on a door appropriately depending on the pitch of the vehicle. So Phil and his guys actually created a system, hydraulic, so they can move it north and south. It's got a wire that goes from the front of it into the door, but the door has to stay ajar so that when it's closed, it doesn't pinch the wire and break it so that we can't matriculate it north and south. So that leaves them extremely vulnerable. The acoustics in the current one we have are horrible. We always send a negotiator with us, several negotiators if we need to, on almost every operation. And the reason the negotiator's there is because we know someone's in the house and they don't come out, whether it's a search warrant or a barricade, then the negotiator will get on the phone and start calling and talking to them. And the vehicle is old, and it's a diesel, and it's extraordinarily loud, and they cannot really hear all that well while they're in the back of the APC while they're trying to negotiate or talk someone out. So the acoustics are just pitiful in the back of it. The new Bearcat Generation 3 is the latest generation in Bearcats. And I have a picture of it there. It looks significantly different than the one that we're operating now. And I can only imagine that if you can go back and picture in your mind what you were driving in 2005. Joe, you're probably still driving the 2005, knowing you.
I got a 2015.
All right, you upgraded.
I had to.
So imagine what technology was in a 2005. There were no backup cameras. There was, in some cases, you were just being able to move your power windows up and down and a door lock, and some of you were probably driving something that still had a push side window that you needed to get air out of.
Jim, my previous car was a 2001, and I bought it used when I got it.
I know this, so that's why I picked you out, Joe. I knew you were driving, and you're frugal, and I get that, and I appreciate that. So, and so I think we've been frugal with a 2005 APC, and now look at the 2025 Lenco Bearcat Generation 3. It's evolved into an absolute state-of-the-art rescue vehicle for SWAT members. It's taken all the deficiencies that I've explained, and not only the ones that we've explained, but SWAT teams all over the country, and they've upgraded it to a model that is absolutely state-of-the-art. It'll fit my entire team. Its ability to go off-road and ground clearance, and it even has blast plates underneath of it. You would think you'd see something like that over in the Middle East or that the military would use, but there are incidents around the country where you got to worry about a pipe bomb or something like that going off underneath of you. Run flat tires we get shot at with a 223 or a larger round could take out tires. The hydraulic winch and ram, vertical gun ports, the intercom system, the technology in it, the ability to be able to communicate with someone now from that APC is significant. The camera systems that we have, now we can see 360 around the APC, thermal imaging, bumper-mounted water system, monitor system, and gas delivery system. These are some of the things that we've been looking at on the vehicle. And it comes on the side of it, you'll see the battering ram that can be put on it, and then internally everything is enclosed so that you can operate it without opening a door. It just is the absolute latest and greatest in vehicles, and you can go to the very end, Vicki, if you can see. Chris, are you able to show that last video?
What happened? It get closed up in there?
It closed up.
I can pull it up.
There we go.
There it is.
icon at the bottom right there.
You just click, it'll play.
I'm trying. Chris, can you run it?
I got it.
So if. This
No
is a-
worries, no worries.
This is aerial footage of a drone from a recent operation. So at this particular time, we flew 2 drones. One so that I can see from a command post, and the commanders can, actually I was down there on this, so I could watch this. Lieutenant Lawrence was sitting next to me.
If you'll just minimize the presentation, I'll show from my screen.
Okay.
So you can see the aerial drone footage, and then what was taking place here is the APC with the 20-foot ram on the front of it was pushing the front door open. And this keeps us from having to get out of the vehicle and actually doing it physically and worrying about being injured or shot. The APC pushes the front door open. It'll back out and see what that causes. And you can see that there's a need because of the pitch to go north and south, and they'll go back and forth until they get the pitch correctly, and then they'll push that door open. A lot of times people will barricade doors like that. So even if we were there to manually do it, we might not be able to get into it. This thing will push it right open. And as they back out, you'll see they'll pull the screen door off the front of it. It was designed so that when we do back it out, it does create a hole for us. After that, you'll see, we won't get to that point, but you'll see that it creates an opening so that I can walk a drone. There's an operator inside of that APC that has a small drone that they'll walk into the front door and start communicating. All this, and really I have deputies that are on the perimeter, and should we need to take someone into custody or not in harm's way. That vehicle will stop, fill multiple 50 caliber rounds and one, I mean, I don't know that we would ever come across a 50 caliber, but a very high caliber round is what is, even the current vehicle that I have will take that. The new vehicles, just as good adequately. This is absolutely the lifeline for them. It goes with everything that they do. It is positioned in the front of a house, wherever we can get it positioned so that we can start communicating with people. It goes on every single operation. If you were to approve this, it would be about 14 to 18 months before I'd get the new one built. So I'd have to make this one that we have last for another 14 to 18 months. Phil will tell you it's going through some electronical issues, that it's down. I regularly go to Fleet and get my fuel, and if it's sitting there, I call him and say, why is that thing sitting here? And it tells me that there's some mechanical issue with it. It can't sit. I don't know the analogy that I can give you, but if it's sitting, it means when something happens, I've got to call Baltimore County or MSP and ask them to bring up their APC so that I can have it for whatever operation that we're working on. So it just simply can't sit. Fleet's excellent about it. As soon as it gets up there, they try and figure out what's wrong with it and get it back operationally as quickly as they can.
Would you say over the last couple of years, as I guess state leniency of certain criminal activities has increased, the need for a vehicle like this has also increased commensurate with what we've seen from the state?
I don't know that there's a SWAT team that does regular work that doesn't take, I think they all take APCs with them now. I think more so, Commissioner, it's legislation that has forced us into doing things a little differently. It's a little scary that we've got to go up and announce that we're here and give people the time. In a lot of cases, in almost every case, it's the time to get up and figure out what's going on and come to the door. We're very successful that way. I'm sure in other jurisdictions, people have time to get their guns and hide their evidence and do things like that. But there have been incidents even locally here that have changed the reason that we've done tactics this way. I think it was in 2012, Baltimore County lost Jason Schneider. And tactics after that changed significantly on when we thought it was time to go into a residence after, whether it was someone that was really in that case, they were going after, I believe, an armed robbery suspect, and Jason was shot and killed while he was in the residence. Our tactics after that changed. We realized that we have these tools We better use them effectively, and that no officer's life is worth going in and trying to catch a bad guy. We can actually bring them out to us, and no evidence is worth losing one of my deputies or an officer or a state trooper over. So tactics, yes. Best practices, yes. And legislation has forced us to change how we do business. Are we still dealing with bad people like I did in 1994? Absolutely. Do people have guns more now than they did back then? I don't think so. I think we're just dealing with the same people. We're just dealing with them differently now. And we are an extremely proactive police department. We do not screw around if you're here dealing drugs. We do not screw around if you're a violent criminal. We do not screw around if you're someone that's dealing child porn. We will come after you with Phil's team and do it safely so that none of our people get hurt. But if I don't have the tools to do it and the technology, then it puts us behind the 8 ball. And the current 2005 Lenco that we're operating is not satisfactory anymore. It will last us another year and a half. He'll limp it to that point. But I'm telling you, we've got to have something new to start moving about the county. And not only in this county, but this vehicle was purchased back in '05 through a UASI grant, Urban Security Initiative. There are agencies throughout the region that purchased APCs and buses off of that particular grant, primarily after 9/11. We are regularly asked by Baltimore County to come down and support them with their operations for a second APC so that they can do things safely as well. It's a pretty proactive and team that's working an awful lot. And then they're sort of my first backup. Phil will pick up the phone and call their SWAT commander who happens to live in Carroll County and let them know, hey, we're working something. We may need support from your Lenco Bearcat or Howard County or MSP. So the group works very well together, but we're moving these APCs around the region. And we agreed to do that with the Urban Security Initiative. But in this case, you guys are funding this, and I would still offer it to any organization that needs it in the region.
And we did look at that funding again.
Yeah, we often, so the UASI funding just dries up. I mean, it used to be after 9/11, you could buy big ticket items like this. It's down to helping me keep Phil and his folks with the operating tools that they need on their uniforms and vests and those sort of things. But it's dried up significantly, the UASI funding. It's down to a minimal.
Gotcha. Well, thank you very much for that. Commissioners, any questions, comments? Commissioner Kyler?
I'm good. Good presentation. Thanks.
Well, Sheriff, thank you very much.
I think I'm back up at the table after this, too. So.
Oh, okay, cool.
Am I?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're done.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So now we'll move into spending authority for catastrophic billing and other related medical expenses from Prime Care Medical Incorporated.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The Office of Procurement, in cooperation with the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, requests your approval to spend up to but not to exceed $45,937.40 to Prime Care Medical, Inc. for catastrophic billing and related medical expenses incurred through February 2025 for Carroll County Detention Center incarcerated individuals for the current contract year. Prime Care Medical, Inc. is an approved term contractor. The county currently piggybacks the contract for Prime Care Medical, Inc., utilizing Cecil County's RFP that was competitively bid. The funds are approved in the fiscal year 25 budget.
So good morning, Commissioners. I know we've been before you recently for various Prime Care invoices. This one is for a different category of invoices. They are pass-through bills that we receive. So as the Prime Care is billed for them, they range to medications, to x-rays, to lab work, to any other outpatient type things. So this invoice has come up before us for expenses, and we're looking for your approval for the spending authority.
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the spending authority for catastrophic billing and related medical expenses incurred through February 25 to Prime Care Medical, Inc. in the amount of $45,937.50.
Second.
40 cents.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Now you're done with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, approval of the Spring 2025 self-help projects, Department of Recreation and Parks. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here before you this morning to seek your approval for the Spring 2025 self-help projects. For this season, we've received 5 applications. These were the appropriate Recreation Council presented their, of course, allow them to go ahead and represent their case in front of the Recreation Parks Advisory Board and answer any questions. And they went ahead and approved all 5 of the projects in the amount of $55,001.
$55,001.
That's the way it worked out.
$1.
But we used all the funding from that, and of course, we had a fall allocation. This is the remaining funding for the spring, so this is our spring, this is the first spring one in quite some time.
Awesome.
I move the Board of Commissioners approve the community self-help projects in the amount of $55,001.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next, we have the approval of additional cost architectural design for the Sheriff's Office, along with the Department of Public Works. Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning, Commissioners.
Everybody's looking very spring today. I like this.
I knew Commissioner Ross wasn't going to be here, so I can wear my pink.
We'll take a picture of you and we'll send it to him. Well, please go ahead.
Thank you. The Office of Procurement and the Bureau of Building Construction were before the board in 2022 and received approval to award a contract to Mans Woodward Studios for architectural design and civil engineering design services for the new Sheriff's Office project in the amount of $2,562,300. Since that time, 3 change orders have been submitted. The one being presented today in the amount of $91,860 exceeds the $150,000 threshold of the original contract, and per the resolution number 1162-2022 delegation of authority, this requires the board's approval to spend these additional funds. These additional costs stem from this schematic redesign, and these funds have been approved within the FY25 budget.
Yeah, so this is essentially because we moved the building. It was originally behind Staley's, kind of near the existing roadway building. We have now solidified where it's going to be at the corner of Greenwood Ave and Manchester Ave. So it was essentially just all of the architectural changes that needed to happen with that building, going from 2 stories to 1 story. The orientation of the building had to change, so the spaces had to change. So it's just those design entities that had to happen through that schematic design process of relocating the building.
Any questions from the board?
Now, how does that affect the park? Does that affect the parking in any way with the redesign or the change?
Yeah, so part of this, we took the parking into consideration. One of these change orders was actually for a parking study to make sure we were covering all of our bases. That report did recommend a garage, but staff's recommendation was, I don't think the county was ready for a garage at this time. So a change to the original schematic design was put in place to make sure surface parking could account for all the workforce in that campus.
Now, just out of curiosity, what was the thought process in going from the parking garage, which, memory serves, we approved money for that last year in budget in like 5 minutes, which I thought was a bit much, and now we're looking at road parking, whatever, which at some point I'm going to assume we're going to want to remove that and put a parking garage. Would that be a
Yes.
step down the road?
Yes, because that was a little further down the road than I think we needed for the design of this building. We thought the parking garage could wait until the county commissioners were ready to proceed with a detention center or with a new public safety building, or, there's other things that came into play with the purchase of Staley's. There's still one remaining property there, so we thought that the staff's recommendation was to wait on that. So basically, what the kind of high-level summary of the parking study, we found that the county government complex, looking everywhere from just about East Middle School all the way to Manchester, we saw there was 950 surface spots available, in addition to 243 street parking spaces available. And we determined from the parking study that the workforce in this campus was about 882 people. So there is a surplus of parking on any given day. That does ebb and flow, with jury duty and different events going on, training and things like that around here. But, we felt confident that we would be able to accomplish the parking needs at this time with surface parking.
So so the report tells us we should have a parking garage. Staff says we should do just a standard parking lot.
Staff felt the recommendation that a surface lot was what we should proceed with because we don't foresee any other buildings on that campus in the next 5, 10, 15 years.
I guess my only question is, so in the future, not this board, but some board's going to tear out a parking lot and build a garage, it's going to cost us excessively more money with inflation and additional cost, whereas if we were to build a parking garage now, we're taking up less of a physical footprint, if I'm not mistaken, for a parking garage than we would be the lot.
A couple things to think about with that is, yes, the physical footprint would be different. You'd have to maintain it, and it's very expensive to maintain. And also, you'd have to maintain it, it's expensive to maintain. And also, the location ultimately probably would not be on that campus. It probably would be more centrally located in the government campus as a whole. Thought has always been that as the detention center moves, that a parking garage would be more appropriately located approximately where the detention center is today. So, those are
Thank you.
also.
When we took a look at that parking study, had the schematic redesign issues were we already aware of those redesign issues, and how does what we're discussing here change for lack of a better term, like the whole site plan?
Sure. So I'm going to start at a high level, then I'll hand it over to Kaylee here. But, it kind of ebb and flowed a couple times about where the building wanted to land, just grading and other features and properties we did or didn't have at the moment. Since then, we've purchased Westminster Transmission, which kind of changed the equation a little bit. And also looking at a regional stormwater facility also changed the equation a little bit, kind of at the 11th hour. So one of these three change orders that we're here to hope to get processed today was to extend our survey work to include that whole campus, to start looking at some of these other bits and pieces that we might be able to include. So part of it was that building physically moving from one location to the other and the work associated with that. And then the other was associated with those other elements such as the parking study and the stormwater pond.
I mean, this issue notwithstanding, I think I want to take a look at that again.
Okay.
On that, since we didn't get to see that yet. So
Yep, we can provide all that.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Commissioner Kyler, anything?
Yeah, I'd love to see it too. I don't think we've seen the parking study. And I'd also like to see the total layout of the proposed safety campus, whatever you want to call it, now that Westminster Transmission was purchased and the stormwater management. It's been a lot of changes, I think, since we've seen the plan. And it'll just be curious. And again, like most projects, the pinch for the parking is going to be during construction. There may be adequate afterwards, but during construction, it's going to be tough. But yeah, I'd like to see the layout of the campus and the parking study too. And
Yes, we could certainly share that with the entire board and answer any questions you have.
So is the thought that you gentlemen are interested in pushing off a decision on this, or you're okay with proceeding with this today?
Well, I don't think anybody's made a motion yet, Commissioner Vigliotti, so I think we push it off and come back to it,
Is this a,
unless somebody wants to make a motion.
how does what you've just heard from the board affect this issue here? I'm sorry, Commissioner Collie, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, this change order, I don't think it has a lot to do with the parking garage. It's because of things moving around and where the building is. And the plan that I'd love to see is that correct? This has nothing to do with the parking garage. It came up in conversation. This isn't paying somebody to change that or not change that, is it?
Correct. Nope, this is to cover the additional survey work, the parking study, and then the schematic design changes we've had to date.
And the amount is within the FY25 budget.
Yes. Correct.
Any thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, I'd just like to put it off for a week, and I think let's look at the study.
So it sounds like this might be germane to parking.
It may be, but I think let's look at the
that
study, and then let's roll from there.
Commissioner Kyler,
Probably
any
makes
thoughts
sense.
about putting it off one more week?
I'll be honest, I don't like people that don't pay their bills. I don't see what this has what pushing this off doesn't change whether or not we have a garage or not. I think this is totally a different item.
Well, that's what I think we're trying to be absolutely certain of, is that it doesn't affect what we're discussing in terms of the parking garage. If we can be absolutely sure of that.
Yeah, I mean, the building is where it is. We're currently in design development, so we are far enough along down this path that, in my professional opinion, we won't be moving the building. And whether it's a parking lot or a parking garage, whatever happens past our site is just a grading issue whenever you hire that engineer to design said parking lot or said parking garage. So it's not related to this, in my opinion, by any means.
That's all I was trying to determine. I know we got
Sure.
to pay our bills, but I don't like wasting money either.
No. How quickly can we take a look at that study?
Send it when we get back.
Okay.
Does that answer concerns about
we
whether to push
provided
it
it
off another week or not?
Yeah, that's
I
fine.
think so. Yeah, I think we're good. I move the Board of Commissioners approve the additional cost to Mann's Woodward Studios Incorporated in the amount of $91,860.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And up next, we have a briefing and discussion on the Summer Camp Coordinator, Assistant Curator, full-time position. Good morning to both of
Good
you.
morning.
Good morning, Denise Beaver, Director of Economic Development, and I have with me Jane Sewell, who is the Carroll County Farm Museum Manager. I want to thank you for the opportunity today to talk about this opportunity as I'm looking at it. In January 15th, we had some staffing changes at the Carroll County Farm Museum, which presented a time to relook at things. And it happened to be, timing-wise, out of the budget discussions, out of the normal position committee. We were too late for that, so that's why we're here today. And I appreciate the opportunity to do that. So we had a person who was our assistant curator resigned on January 15th, was her last day. And so at the Farm Museum, we have two part-time positions then that we were looking at. We had someone who helped with some of those duties and then also did some duties related to the camps at the Carroll County Farm Museum. So looking at it as a business, you know, you'd say, okay, we have this change in staffing, we have these two positions, you know, we have a person who's doing very well that's still employed with us, and Jane can talk a little bit more about her journey here with Carroll County Government Employment. So we thought, why don't we combine those two positions? So we have two 25-hour positions that we're requesting to combine into one full-time 40-hour position at the Farm Museum. And I do have some changes with the actual title that we had down there as we're looking at it, because we're also going through the Quinto and the job descriptions, and we had to look at, okay, merging 2 job descriptions to bring this information to you. So we did immediately notify Management and Budget and talk to them about this idea, and also Human Resources. And so they directed us to, gave us some information about what's going to be the fiscal impact of this, and HR's, how is this going to work, and working on a job description and all of that. So we've gone through all of those steps, and that brings us here today. They said the next step is to come to the board and see, since it is out of process with the position description committee as well as budget timeframe. And again, I just think it's a smart business decision to look at this. I think Commissioner Vigliotti, you're probably more familiar with it, being on the advisory board at the Farm Museum. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. We feel like there is a fiscal impact, obviously, because you're creating a full-time position and you're adding benefits to that position. But as Jane will tell you about the evolution of the camps at the Farm Museum, they have been evolving into a very attractive and money-making venture at the Carroll County Farm Museum, and something that I think the community needs. If anybody has small children, trying to get kids into camps and get them great activities during the school year when they're off school, and during the summertime, it's a hot commodity, basically, and I think it's something that is going to continue to grow at the Farm Museum, and we will be able to take advantage of that with having someone who is there full-time to direct those activities and really flesh them out. She's been adding, new and different camps every month, and as I said, Jane can talk to you a little bit more about that. So I do have information on, the duties and the fiscal impact, and Jane has more specific information about the evolution of a valuable employee that we would really like to retain, a young person who came to us as an intern from the Westminster High School, who is now continuing to work there at the Farm Museum and wants to evolve her career here. So for all of those reasons, I support, the effort to come here today to talk to you about it and answer any questions that you have. Jane, do you want to tell them a little bit more about the camps?
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you. Our current camp director has been there at the Farm Museum, first as an intern in 2017, and she's been there ever since. She's very passionate about what she does. She helps with the curatorial duties, but her main emphasis and passion is definitely the camps, which have evolved. Last year, we had 4 weeks of camp and 2 mini camps in the fall, and the total income in 2024 was $23,766, which is very nice and was quite an increase from the year before. So this past Monday, we had a mini camp. It was called Cocoa Creations. It was all about chocolate. It was fascinating. I had a wonderful time. We had 46 children there. They were there from 9 to noon. It's a 3-hour. They paid $30 a person. Our expense for that was $242. Our income was $1,380. I find that really quite satisfying. So this year, as of yesterday, we have 201 children signed up for this summer's camp. We have taken in, as of yesterday, $20,375. This is March, almost April, but we're way ahead of where we were this time last year. The camps are filling up. One of the farm camps is already full. We see the possibility of and I think I put it in the briefing, a possible additional income this year for the openings that we have of another $10,525, which will be a significant increase. These camps really are quite wonderful. The addition of the mini camps, there were 2 in '24. We have another 5, one of which is already finished. We have another one in April, and they go along on days that the children are out of school. So we feel really, really special. It's been, the parents have been so supportive and really wonderful feedback. And we have this summer many returning children, from last summer coming to the 4 1-week camps, plus now the mini camps are new. So I think with that in mind, 25 hours is barely enough time for her to create the programs and get everything ready. So having a full-time position.
Following you correctly, right? You combine the 2 positions into one, which allows that individual to focus more time on the camps, which could lead to potentially increasing the number of camps and the offerings, but also allows her to cover curatorial duties instead of having a separate job for that. Am I following that correctly?
You are, yes, yes.
All right, so what's the what would be the cost?
So the information that we got from management and budget, that the salary at, I think it's a level 5, at $34,320 with the benefits would be $64,225.40. So the difference now between having it, the 2, I think, part-time positions and going to 1 full-time positions, this current fiscal year would be negative $19,399.94. And so, obviously, there's additional cost for this with making it a full-time position with benefits. But as Jane alluded to and shared with you, the numbers of the value of the camp revenue that we're bringing in is actually more than covers that cost, with the hope that in the future that will continue to grow, with having someone that is going to be full-time to be dedicated to the camps. So I do think, as I said, looking at it as a business decision, it seems to make sense to me that, and also staffing-wise, talking to Jane and the staff there with regard to covering the duties that are needed to be covered, with not having the time right now to cover the curator, assistant curator duties. So that's the cost. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much.
May I add just one thing, that retaining a young person of this caliber, I think, is very important. She's been working a part-time job now for a number of years. She's very young and she's very valuable. I see her needing and probably searching in the future for a full-time job. So I would think, I know the Farm Museum and the county would be wise to retain this individual.
And you said she's been with us since she was 17?
She came to us in 2017.
2017, okay.
Well, I guess she was, because she
right.
came as an intern from
Yeah.
Westminster High School.
Yeah.
So approximately 17, yes.
Kind of reminds me of Rick from this morning, having worked with us since he was 19.
That's right. Wow, she could be with us.
Stay for 47 years.
47
right,
years, that's
exactly.
right.
Yeah, can we get that in writing?
And on the dotted
She'll
line.
have Jane's job at that point.
Oh,
She'll
it
be-
It seemed like eternity.
She will.
It is.
I do have a correction with the staff recommended motion, if you are going to go to that.
Well, one quick second.
Okay.
Commissioner Kyler, did you have something you wanted to add? I saw your microphone pop off.
I'm preparing to vote.
Oh, okay.
The title, I apologize, it should be Camp Director slash assistant curator full-time position is in terms of the staff recommended motion. We had changed her title to that previously.
Well, I think to your point about business opportunities and looking at things as a business, which I know we are county government, but, I think the ROI on a chocolate event is quite significant.
That's right.
So I can only imagine what other opportunities might lie out there for that. I think it adds, as we all know, value not only as an event or opportunity for community members, but it also adds funding to the bottom line for the Farm Museum. And I think anytime we can retain good employees that we are lucky enough to get in the first place, I think that's a no-brainer.
I move the Board of County Commissioners authorize the creation of a summer camp coordinator, assistant curator, full-time position at the Carroll County Farm Museum.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
both very
Thank
much.
you very much.
And now we will move into public comment. Chris, do we have anybody on the line?
Yes, sir. We do have one caller. If you could use *6, please unmute. You'll have 3 minutes for public comment. Please identify yourself first.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Catherine Adelaide, a member of the Carroll County Republican Central Committee and Chair of the Pro-Life Subcommittee of the Central Committee. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Joe, great job. I'm Commissioner Vigliotti. Great job today. Thank you for reading off the items so I can kind of keep up when I'm on the phone here and can't see everything. I'm doing really a big pro-life report today because there's a lot going on. But I did want to give a shout out that you are the Carroll County heroes for denying the county land for the power line. So I want to give you a big thumbs up. I know people who've called me are very happy about that. So you're the Carroll County heroes for today from that good news. Okay, on to pro-life. Last Tuesday, I got a text from Delegate Chris Tomlinson. He needed a little lobbying help on the abortion funding bill, HB 0930, especially the common sense amendment. I immediately cleared my calendar because this is what I got into politics for, and began lobbying efforts of the 80 Democrats who sponsored the bill to at least have a little common sense, to add things like, accountability of who's watching this money, where it's going, and human trafficking education, because human traffickers are going to come into Maryland and manipulate these funds to continue human trafficking. More abortions are performed now from out-of-state citizens than in-state. Thursday, I wasn't here with you last Thursday because I was watching this bill. None of the amendments passed, but I'm so proud of our elected officials down there, Delegate Weibel and others. They exposed the Ponzi scheme going on with this funding, and it's all on the record for at least God to judge someday. It was absolutely horrible, but I appreciate sometimes all we can do is what they did, and I was glad to be a part of that. On Saturday, March 15th, I was asked by the Carroll County Right to Life President Stephen Leon to attend the first Adult Rally for Life seminar in Frederick County. We had a table there. The big news there is our Carroll County Right to Life website is now live. You can go to carrollcountyrightolife.com. I hope that you will check it out. Yesterday, I was at the first tax result down in Annapolis. Kathy Schlager did a great job. The Freedom Caucus did a great job. My sign said, abortion funding is an unconstitutional tax. It's not the role of the government to fund abortions, which are not health care. I got a lot of great comments from the elected officials and others. They thanked me for my sign. Most people are not connecting abortion funding to the tax problem we're having in Maryland. And finally, next week will be a big pro-life week as well. On Tuesday, I'll be in D.C. protesting at the Department of Justice. Please Google Justice for the Five. It was a big case. I know my time's up. And then finally, on Thursday, March 27th, is the Maryland March for Life. Just Google that, and really it'd be a great, if you guys who are pro-life want to do something in Maryland, I hope you could attend that event. It is in the evening. So, all right, that's my pro-life report for this week. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you very much. Roberta, do we have any public comment here this morning?
No cards.
All right. We will move into the open admin session of the agenda. Gentlemen, anything for open admin today?
Nothing. Thank you.
Commissioner Kyler, anything for open admin?
No, thank you.
All right, we will go into our agenda review. Is Wanda not with us this morning?
She is not.
Okay, just wanted to make sure before I jumped and started moving without her being
It's
here.
all you, Commissioner.
All right, so for Monday, March 24th, 6:30 p.m. solar hearing for Pleasant Valley Solar, Pleasant Valley Road, and that is a virtual hearing, and Commissioner Kyler will be participating in that. On Tuesday, March 25th, the Board of Commissioners have an open session with no public comment, including agency budget hearings for FY26. Wednesday, March 26th, 9 o'clock a.m., Carroll County Sheriff's Office Training Academy graduation, and all 5 of us will be present for that. At 12:30 p.m., Carroll County Recreation and Parks Advisory Board meeting at Bear Brand. Saturday, March 29th shows nothing, and Sunday, March 30th, I have the Commissioners podcast for that week. And then moving into the second week.
Can I ask one clarification before
Of course, yeah.
it's the following week? On, trying to find it, on Tuesday, that is a meeting that has no public comment, and that means no public comment on any of the agenda items, no public comment at the end of the meeting, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else, Commissioner Kyler?
Nope, sorry to slow you down.
Oh, no, no. No worries at all. Better to make sure, right? All right, so for the following week, Monday, March 31st shows nothing. Tuesday, April 1st, the county commissioners will be meeting for proposed budget preparation session and closed again. On Wednesday, April 2nd, 6 o'clock p.m. at Maryland Blueprint Town Hall with Superintendent McCabe at the Carroll County Career and Technology Center in Westminster, and Commissioner Kyler is showing to attend that. And at 6 o'clock p.m., Planning and Zoning will be meeting here at the County Office Building in Reagan Room 3 with Commissioner Gordon attending. Then on Thursday, April 3rd, we have our open session after a closed administrative session. Item number 1 is Priority Carroll, Child Abuse Prevention Month proclamation. Item number 2, public comment update for legislative update. Item number 3, contract award for community asset map assessment and strategic plan. Item number 4, public hearing for Piney Run watershed study. Item number 5, briefing, discussion, possible decision for board direction for potential code amendments to Chapter 156, Adequate Public Facilities and Concurrency Management Code. And then a request to discuss amendments with Planning and Zoning Commission, Department of Planning and Land Management. Public comment, administrative session open, agenda review. And then at 1 o'clock p.m., we will be meeting and closed for a proposed budget preparation session. Then at 6 o'clock p.m. on Friday, April 4th, Battle of the Books at Westminster High School. And then at 6 o'clock p.m., Battle of the Books at Montessori School in Westminster. Saturday, April 5th, is the Christian Farmers Outreach 36th Annual Luncheon. And so far, none of us are slated to attend. And then on Sunday, April 6th, Commissioner Kyler has the podcast. Are there any additions, changes, or questions about next week, the following week?
I just need to say, number 1, good meeting.
Aye.
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 We are adjourned. Thank you very much.